Here now to Wall Street, where the markets are trying to rebound from yesterday's major sell-off triggered by President Trump's continued attacks on Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Right now, the Dow is up, and it's up substantially, up more than 2.7%, more than 1,000 points up. This, however, is the result of very fluctuating days that we see, oftentimes hours, in the Dow Jones. Adding to some of the anxiety that the international markets are feeling is the International Monetary Fund just slashed the U.S. growth forecast to 1.8% in 2025. That's nearly a full percentage point lower than the estimate from just January. Joining us now, NBC's senior business correspondent, Christine Romans, and NBC White House correspondent, Gabe Gutierrez. So, Christine, what's the reason for the IMF's downgrade, and then all of a sudden we're up 1,000 points in the Dow Jones right now?
Yeah, stock up on the Dramamine, I think, is what we can say here, because seasick is how a lot of investors feel. And it's been like this for weeks now. The IMF downgrade, that is simply because of the shock, it used the word shock, of the April 2nd announcement at the Rose Garden when the president announced what it calls these reciprocal tariffs. They were big, they were dramatic. Even the pause on the worst of them has created uncertainty that has caused them to dramatically lower their expectations for U.S. growth. U.S. growth now at just 1.8% for this year, far below, a whole point below growth it expects for the rest of the world. So it is the IMF not using the words self-inflicted wound, but when you read between the lines and see what it's saying about the trade strategy, that's the reason for the downgrade for growth here.
And then there's also, Gabe, the whole issue of the president vis-a-vis Fed Chair Powell. What's the president saying today about Powell? It's not clear whether the president could actually fire him, even if he wanted to.
Well, Jose, legal experts say he can't, but there is a question that the Supreme Court is weighing whether to take up certain cases that may give the president more power to fire independent agency heads. But at this point, the president himself has stopped short of actually saying he would fire Jerome Powell, although last week on Friday, his top economic advisor, Kevin Hassett, said that the president and his team were continuing to study the issue. Still, as you said, the president still hasn't said that he would actually fire Powell, who, by the way, he appointed during his first term. But he has been ramping up those attacks, Jose, calling him a loser yesterday.
So, Christine, how is that playing a part in all of this that we've been seeing in the Dow and just world markets?
It layers more uncertainty onto everything. I mean, the Fed is designed to be an independent body separate from political whims and the pressures on a president. Of course, he wants lower interest rates. All presidents would like the Fed to tweak interest rates so that it would make things better for them in the near term. But that's not what the Fed is supposed to do. It is supposed to look at maximum employment and inflation around 2%. Those are its goals. And it doesn't think it's the right time to be lowering interest rates without inflation certainly under control here. So you have this push-pull here. There are those, in fact, even a news story in the Wall Street Journal today, essentially saying the president looks like he's trying to find somebody to blame for an economic downturn because of his own trade policies. Blame it on Powell for not lowering interest rates soon enough. So that's, I think, what you're seeing set up here. And I agree with Gabe that most experts say, legal experts say, he can't fire the Fed chief. But the White House has said, well, they're looking into that option anyway.
And, Christine, when all of this uncertainty, you look at gold, and it's just breaking records almost every day.
What you're seeing, they're calling it a sell America trade. And that is scary for investors because what it means, they're so alarmed by all of this over the past 4 or 5 weeks that they are buying gold, they are selling American stocks, American bonds, the American dollar. In a way that usually when there's uncertainty and chaos, the U.S. is the safe haven. This time, at least so far, the U.S. is not the safe haven, and that's getting an awful lot of attention. It's sort of a reordering, and that has big ramifications when the U.S. financial system, and in fact, the U.S. bond market is kind of the center, the oxygen of the entire global financial system. So, you know, these are big changes underway here. You're going to see a lot of, I think, this volatility in the days and weeks ahead.
And, Gabe, do we have any update or indication as how to negotiations, conversations between the executive, the president of the United States, and other countries on this issue of tariffs have been going?
Well, Jose, Vice President J.D. Vance earlier today said that there has been progress made on trade talks with India, but so far no final deal has been struck on any of these tariffs, even though for the last several days we have heard the White House talking about how at least 15 countries have put in offers when it comes to a potential trade deal, but still no final deal yet, although progress has been made on India, and the administration says it has been talking to several countries, including Mexico, for example, and South Korea and Japan as well, Jose.